Good afternoon. This is Rodney, and I'm here with Mike. And we've been talking about business and finances and all of these new things that people are talking about when it comes to how we do business today, coming out of the pandemic and everything else. And so, Mike here knows a few things about finances, and we've been chatting, and we thought it would be great to have a discussion just around some things that really are important and could make a difference. So, Mike, if you want to just quick introduce your background and why we've been having these conversations, I would love to just go a little deeper and share about some of the things we think about.
Yeah, so I'm Mike. So you have a bit of finance background, which makes this discussion maybe a bit more fun than some others. But we've been thinking through a lot, as Rodney had mentioned, with pandemic, lots of change happened in the world the last couple of years, which I think makes more of the foundational principles of business and finance even more important than before. And so there's just a lot that we're talking through, that our clients are talking through. There's a lot going on around there.
Yeah, it's kind of the new buzz, and I'm sure that we're all talking about the same things in different contexts. And we just thought it would be really cool to share a little bit, like, what are the common things that we're focused on that truly are making a difference and keeping us stable and grounded. So the financial side of a business, a healthy business, Mike, I think it's an important thing and something we have to keep in mind and have to keep in conversation, not only at an executive or management level, but throughout the whole company, because I think that clarity just helps keep everybody on the same page. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's on your mind around that, or what would you encourage people as they start thinking about that topic and people in general?
Yeah, a couple of things before really getting into the financial piece. There's just sort of the health of the business itself, the business model, and understanding what makes the business itself tick. Right. So some people, Jim Collins talks about the economic engine or the flywheel concept, right, where there's a cycle and process for how business happens, how growth happens, and we want to do that intentionally, and we want to build on the success that's there, learn from the failures, and there's a cycle to it. The process could look like you build a great product, you get it out to a few key clients, build credibility, get things going, they refer more customers, so you get more revenue coming in, and build a brand. And then with that, hopefully you can charge enough so that after paying for your product, your labor, operational costs, you've got profit left over and margin to invest back into the business to make the product even better. And then the cycle starts back over, right? We've got an improved product or a new product you sell to those key customers, and that's kind of the cycle. So what we want to do is have that cycle work for us. And it gains momentum. And so if there's a missing step, product is bad, customer's not happy, that slows the whole thing down. So we really just want to understand kind of what that process looks like, what that cycle looks like in the particular business, because it's a little different for every business, and then harness it.
When we think about that, is it always the same as what we did before? Or, I mean, things change and rapidly everything we knew went away, but now there's like this familiar feeling, but new coming back. What does that look like?
Yeah, so ideally a bit of both. Always, right? Because the fundamentals need a good product, and we want to serve a customer and see that value delivered. We want happy customers.
Yeah, it's so good. And so once you understand or just kind of have that picture of what makes the business tick, where do you go next? Like, what are the next things that you need to start thinking about? Questions you may need to ask, or conversations you need to start within the organization?
Yeah, so the numbers tell the story of the business, right? So understanding the business model, business cycle is more of the meat of it, but the numbers tell a story. So what numbers do we want to look at? All right, so there's just the basics, right? Do you understand the balance sheet, right? Your cash balance, receivables, inventory, equipment, your loans, all of that. So you understand the balance sheet and how to read that, understand the story it's telling, or the part of the story that is selling. And the same thing with the profit and loss, right? How's revenue trending? Are we hitting the goals? Are we winning? How are cost of goods sold? All over the place, probably the last couple of years. That's a real thing to be managed. That's been really, really challenging for a lot of people. Operating costs, how are we doing there, and just kind of understand that and measure the financial health there. And then cash. Statement of cash flows, right? Cash coming in, cash going out. What is working, and how are we using out the cash resource?
Yeah, and it's interesting recently in new conversations with people in general in business. There are people who really understand the numbers, and then there are people that are just looking forward, and it kind of drives them crazy, and they need like another foundation or level of people who care about that. And that's a whole other topic for another day. But fundamentally, that is your black and white roadmap of what happened, where we're at, and where we can go. What are ways that you can take those numbers and understand them better and or start to put them to work in the business? What's your encouragement around that? Because it can be overwhelming if you really don't know what it means.
Yeah, it's not as terrible as it sounds. So that's one thing that's good to know. But as business owners and managers, I think we want to know enough to be dangerous. And then there's the CPAs, right? Accountants of the world. And hopefully we have one working for us, or we have a CPA we can chat through on the more complex things and the more critical financial decisions. So basically, know enough to be dangerous on your own, and then work with great people. Then focus on cash, right? I'm saying cash is king, right? So how do we manage and improve cash flow? So money coming in, money going out, and managing that, right? Because if we run out of cash, we run out of business. Fairly straightforward.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, but pretty ugly. So how do we not do that, and how do we actually grow and improve cash flow? So I would look at that a couple different ways. One is just looking at cash management by itself. So thinking about, okay, so if we build a product or buy a product to resell to a customer, how long does it take until we pay for that thing, that product, fence material, ag equipment, or just components, whatever that might be? How long does it take from the time we buy that until we can actually sell it, and then ultimately the customer pays for us? So that's sort of the cash cycle. And of course, we want to improve cash flow, which means tightening that cash cycle. So keeping on top of receivables. Stocking inventory is a real challenge, but it takes some wisdom and judgment figuring out how much to stock, because that works against us from a cash perspective. But we want enough on hand to meet the customer needs and drive the revenue, which ultimately does come back around in cash. But so it's not a super simple thing, but there's some basic things of all things being equal. We want to shorten the cycle, and there are some things we can control more than others. So ideally, customers are generally paying invoices on time, right? That's a big one. That's an easy one to miss, but can make a difference there. So that's sort of the cash cycle side of it. The other one is just thinking about how to actually improve profit, the profitability of the products we're selling, so that there's more net cash left over. So that's just thinking about, okay, so for every dollar that comes in, how much of it goes right back out for cost of goods sold? How much goes out for sales and marketing, for your rent expense, occupancy, right? Other overhead and operating costs, and what do you have left over? So you have a profit, so you can think about research and development. After that, do you have enough left over to pay debt back and those kinds of things? Do you have some take-home pay for your business partners or shareholders? And maximize that. So what happens with every dollar that's coming in?
So when it comes to, you think about that as an owner or a principal of a business, what does that mean for the team around you or the people that are getting work done or responsible for different things? Because that's another thing. How much do you tell them, or what don't you tell them? And then, there's some people that are just really insecure sharing information, but yet when people have good information, they can make better decisions, or they're more engaged. Like, what does that look like from your standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because every team, every company is different. So we kind of have to figure out for ourselves what is appropriate to share with who. We might have a greater level of trust with the senior leadership than we do with a supervisor or the individual contributor or frontline worker, that kind of thing. So that's something where we have to figure that out for ourselves. No really easy answers there. But all things being equal, I'm a huge believer in transparency and sort of more of a shared ownership of what's happening in the business, equipping managers to own their area of the business, run with that. And so that means there's a certain amount of context, and maybe not even just from their area of the business. That's really helpful as they grow their team and they do their work day to day. So you kind of figure out what's appropriate to share. And if that's nothing today, maybe over a couple of years, over time, we could create a culture and build trust with the employees so that becomes more okay and a good and healthy thing. And I think we might be surprised with the creativity and ownership and sense of responsibility that comes out of having more of a common language, common understanding of the reality of the business, where it's at operationally and financially, and equip managers to make decisions off of that appropriately for their role and in sync with the business owner and the bigger picture goals, but then take it away.
I think it's so important, especially when as a team you're working through a change. You had to make a decision, or you've looked at something and you've got a new product, new margin, whatever that is. Everybody's kind of all in a different way versus not really understanding what's driving different things. And I've heard that you get great results from that, just a whole different buy-in from the people all through the company.
Yeah, so right on. And I think the challenge is, how do we make that more part of our day to day or week to week? Do we have a weekly scorecard with some key metrics, operational or financial or both? And same thing at month end, right? Where we kind of have the numbers for the month, and maybe there's a summarized format or just revenue and cost of goods sold that might get shared with more people. We're usually more sensitive around bottom line, right? So there's some things there. So we might not share everything, but can we share some of the key things that make the biggest difference?
Yeah, ultimately it's better for the people making it happen and the customer on the end of the process here. It's really, really good. So that's really good. But if I'm sitting here thinking, as a business owner or a principal in a business, and all of this starts to become real or necessary for me, what do I do with it? How do I begin that process? How do I know where I'm at today and figure out how I can get to where I should be? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you're serving customers, not serving people, right? And you're accomplishing the goal. You're accomplishing your mission as an organization with people, right? So who's on your team? Where do you have a high level of trust, right? And get started. You have to get started with someone with some type of opportunity or some type of challenge. Dive in. Yeah.
And I think, if I'm hearing that correctly, that just starts with setting some goals, achievable goals, measurable steps, and then starting to walk through that process.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that something that happens overnight? Like, what's responsible or reasonable? Some of us like it faster and better, but yeah, if someone's really starting to think through that, what does it look like to begin the journey?
Yeah. So joking about being overnight, right? Like, it might happen. That's awesome if it does, but probably not. Good change takes time.
Yeah, and by that you start to increase revenue, adjust priorities, and bring clarity to the big picture of why we're here. Why are we in business? What is our thing?
Yeah, and I think some basic goal setting. Start with something that's fairly simple. Like, we might take it for granted. There could be a project of, all right, we're growing, we need another machine in the shop so we can spool up more capacity. So when's that going to be done? All right, who's the team that'll make that happen? Let's create a goal. And ideally what we want to do is get started with something, but then also build the level of confidence that if we have a goal, we're going to hit a goal. And that's kind of what I mean when we're talking about making more of a day-to-day kind of a habit where we're intentional about business planning, budgeting, having goals, and we're building a team that is focused on those goals and we're aligned. Right. And so in that kind of, with that in place, which takes time to do, but with that in place, we can plan and we can predict and bring more stability to some of the chaos or change, and we actually build some organizational muscle, if we will. We get better at the skill of tackling a change, taking advantage of an opportunity, setting goals, hitting it. We miss it, learning from it, hit it the next time, kind of thing. And then what happens is a lot of things about business get a little bit easier. Never gets super easy, but things can be easier rather than harder. All right, like what's going to happen next quarter? What do we think we can achieve over the next year? Do we think we can get that piece of equipment installed and in place? And what can we tell customers about that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3 months away. Can we count on the revenue that those customers would then, they're happy to buy if we can produce it, right? So when can we count on that?
Yeah.
So it gets a little bit tricky, but what we want to do is set up a business and set up a structure for it so that becomes easier, not harder. So it's not about predicting what we can't predict or control, but more about, well, I kind of believe that in order to predict the future, you have to create the future. So what are some of the more achievable goals that are still really meaningful, but we have more control over?
I like that. And I'm a firm believer in here's where we're at today and here's a goal, but along the way, what can we celebrate as a win? Because everybody likes to win.
Yeah.
And I've actually experienced that the wins start to become these places where people don't really want to plateau. They want to beat it and gamify it. And it just creates a different synergy that ultimately brings all of this together. The reality of good numbers, good data, the transparency and accountability in that, but also the wins along the way to keep winning and doing better, because that's where everybody from a people level wins, internally and externally, in any business environment. Yeah,
that's huge. Celebrate the wins, but don't get too complacent, all right? Because your customers are going to throw you a new opportunity the next day.
And along the way, you meet a lot of great people and have a lot of fun opportunities. I really like that. That's really cool. I really appreciate your thoughts and just expanding a little more around how we can make our businesses grow. And even though it feels hard sometimes, it still can be fun. And I think we just have opportunity all the time if we keep pushing through and deciding what's next. Any closing thoughts around any of that, Mike?
Not too much to add, but business is about bringing value to people, right? Serving the customer and serving employees work for the business, but we're also serving them, providing good place to work, good opportunities. And as an organization, we're a key part of any small community or large community we're part of. And so really a lot rests on us as entrepreneurs, business owners, and managers to do that well, because work is a blessing to people, and we want to make a good impact for the people that are the closest to us in the community we're part of. And so that stewardship really comes to life, not because it's the numbers for the sake of numbers, but money is a tool, it's a resource. And when we see that redeployed, create better job opportunities, serve the customer even better, and build a stronger community because we have a stronger business. That's where it really comes together for me.
Yeah, that's so good. It's about blessing the people. Change is hard, but embrace it, get okay with it, and we're just all committed to be people serving people. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to the next time.